All right, we're live, and I'm super excited to introduce you to today's guest. We spent time this year in Thailand, and now we're reconnecting here on Welcome to the Winner Circle. On today's episode, I interview a Zen priest, an AI coach, a tarot and psychic guide, a ritual master, a financial wizard, and a business strategist meets metaphysician. Welcome to the winner circle, Cian Kenshin.
Wow, it sounds like a lot when you say it all at once.
Well, welcome, and yeah, we're gonna get into that. And but before I get into that question, where we kind of unpack all those titles, is just kind of the goal of these conversations is to really uplift, inspire, and empower anyone tuning in. And this first question sets us off on a really positive note. And the question is, right here, right now, in this moment, what do you love about your world right now? Not about the external, but your personal world. What do you love about your personal world right now?
You know what I love so much about my personal reality, that inner core that you're talking about,
Uh,
that's like beyond all of the form, all of the material, all of the personality, all of the thoughts, the feelings and emotions, that core that's like untouchable, unflappable. I love that no matter what is happening in my world, my business burning down, my corporate contracts burning down, me deciding to leave my house in Thailand, so burning that down, my relationship, all of this craziness. It's been a crazy like Venus retrograde, you know? Um, no matter what is happening out there, in my core, in my essence, there's peace, there's bliss, there's happiness. This body could be like shaking and crying and like vibrating and just sobbing on the ground. And just in behind all of it, there's this awareness that's like, keep going, man. This is awesome. You've got this. You're doing so good.
mhm.
Yeah. So that's like, it's taken a lot of training to get to that point where no matter what's happening, there's this peace, this bliss, this awareness,
Uh-huh.
this depth.
Let's get into that because when you say that, I know I'm wondering that, and people listening, how, how, with all this burning down, the relationship, the house, the beautiful house that you had in Thailand, your job, your business, all just going up in flames, for various reasons, you still at the center, at the core of your being, are at peace.
Yeah. It comes with a cultivation of a deep trust with the universe. I'm ever the empirical scientist. As you can probably tell from my various titles, like metaphysics, right, is the science of the subtle world, of the subtle realm, the science of spirituality. And so like my approach to spirituality and to the subtle realm and to energetics and to tantra and to zen and to all of these things is one of like this crazy laboratory like mad scientist, right? That's my approach. Is I run experiments, and you know what, I'm that crazy guy who runs all the experiments on himself. So I've done things like, a year ago, I burnt my business down. I just decided I went to a tantra retreat in India for a month, and I had assigned my staff, some things to do while I was gone, and then I went and I totally changed as a person during that retreat, and I came back and the business just didn't feel good anymore. and the staff had actually really fucked things up. And I'm like, okay, you're all gone, and I'm just going to burn this business down. And so I'm sitting in Bali, just burnt my business down. I owed a bunch of clients money and committed to pay them back, and I have since then, which is nice. And but I'm sitting there with like no income, and I'm in a foreign country, and I just sat there until in this mode of trust, in this mode of receiving, and I was down to my last $1,000 in the bank after 3.5 months of not making any income. Like, obviously I had good savings, but after 3.5 months and not, you kind of like you kind of burn through it. But I was just trusting. I'm like, the it's gonna come. So I just kept doing the inner work, kept doing the magic, and one day email drops into my inbox, and it just happens to be a billionaire looking for an executive coach for his conglomerate. And just like that, everything changed, right? And so I was kind of playing chicken with the universe. This was an experiment. It's like, okay, well, when am I ever going to be down to my last $1,000? Like, it's been probably 20 years since I've been in that situation, and it's probably never going to happen again, So I literally took advantage of that situation. I'm like, I want to see how much the universe has my back, right? So I'm in the flow, I'm in trust, and I'm going to sit here and I will respond. I'm not going to be dumb and not take action, right? Like because manifestation and magic, like the stuff that I teach, requires you to take action. But it doesn't require you to make things happen, right? And so this for me was like the biggest test ever, because I had just done a big spell, a big ritual. I had just taught a course with 20 people who paid 10K each on like secret Solomonic ceremonial magic. And I didn't even know if I would ever teach that again at that point. We had done the ritual. 12 people had passed the course. Eight couldn't cut it, didn't make it to the end. So we had 12 magicians doing this massive ritual, all of us all around the world, all manifesting different things, doing the work, doing the magic, doing the ceremony. And like literally the outcome of that for me and my partner at the time was everything burning down. But like the thing is, when you're doing magic, when you're doing like really powerful things like that, and you're like, you say something flippantly like, I want $1 million in the next year. Well, that's not going to work with your tiny little business, or that's not going to work with the job that you have. So the first thing the universe needs to do is fucking take everything away. Right?
Yeah.
And so like, in fact, I was an agent of the universe when I came back to my business, and I like, oh, this doesn't feel right. Burn it down, because like when you do magic, it changes your subconscious and it changes the collective unconscious to push you in the direction of the goal. But a lot of people like get caught up in the, oh no, I did something wrong. Like now I'm being punished or whatever. And they're like holding on to the thing that's getting taken away. And I'm just like, let it go. Yeah.
It's clearing space for you.
It's
The
clear.
universe is clearing space for what you're wanting to manifest to take place. I have a few questions here.
Yeah.
First, let's examine magic. Maybe a lot of listeners are thinking like magic. They're
What
thinking
is
like
that?
David Copperfield or
Uh,
like a card trick. So yeah, what is magic?
so that's such a deep question. I'm just gonna assume that a lot of your listeners already know what manifestation is. Is that a safe assumption?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's build off of that. Let's like determine what is the difference between manifestation and magic. So manifestation has several key ingredients, right? You need a clear vision of what it is you want to manifest, clear intention. You need to be able to hold that in your mind. And then you need to do some practices to conjure a strong positive emotion. So for a lot of people, this is gratitude, like, so they teach all sorts of manifestation techniques like be, do, have, and all this sort of stuff. At the end of the day, it's clear intention of who it is you want to be and what that person has around them. And then the being part for you is conjure the emotion of that person now. And then that kind of like helps like energetically, magnetically draw you into that situation that you're manifesting. So that's the foundation of all of the quantum field manifestation technology. That's those. It doesn't matter how you wrap it up, there's always a strong positive emotion and a clear intention, and then there's a bunch of other stuff you can wrap around that to get all the various different manifestation techniques like the secret or manifestation babe or all of these other things, right? But at its core, this is what it is. How magic differentiates itself. Let me give you a metaphor. Manifestation is like it's like when you're first learning to ride a bicycle, you have training wheels on it, right? It's like you're learning to ride a bicycle, you put training wheels on, it holds it up. It's nice and safe. You're not going to fall over and like smash your face in the cement and but then you can only really steer the bike with the steering wheel. So
Yeah.
it's simple. It's constrained, it's restricted, but it's also safer. Now, comparatively, magic is like flying a helicopter. Okay, so now imagine yourself in a helicopter. You've got these joysticks, you've got all these gauges and dials, and you can go up, you can go down, you can spin around, you can fly left and right. Like the dimensionality of the way a helicopter can move is like orders of magnitude more complicated than riding a bicycle with training wheels.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the metaphor. And now what does that look like? And why would anyone want to learn that? Well, one of the things that people in the manifestation world need to do, they talk about belief, right? So it's like your beliefs get in the way. So you have a belief field and you can never manifest something that you don't believe that you're worthy of, right?
Uh-huh.
So you're limited by your own belief system. You're limited by your own ability to envision yourself in that future. And the reason is because you're using entirely your own being, your own complex to enact the magic. It's still magic, but it's very constrained. It's like you're doing it within. And so in order to be able to even imagine yourself in that situation, you have to do a lot of shadow work. You have to do a lot of work on like subconscious beliefs, right? You have to do affirmations. You have to do all of these things that reprogram your subconscious little bit by little bit so that you can even imagine yourself in that situation enough to manifest it.
Yeah.
Magic bypasses that part, and that's where the danger is.
Okay.
Right? So magic uses things like ceremony, ritual, correspondences, fragrances, sacraments, deities, all of these different, like if you think about all of the six senses that all of us beings have, right? Like sight, taste, touch, sound, thought, like we have six different senses. every sense has a rainbow of frequencies associated with it. And we have symbols that are associated with each of those frequencies. So like music, right? Like A, B, C, D, E, F, G,
Yeah.
H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. So now you've got the rest of that song going in your head. That's like a ceremony. That's a pattern that's been programmed into you, right? And each letter, A, is associated with a frequency. So if I say Lakshmi, that's a deity associated with a certain frequency. If I say green, that's a color associated with a certain frequency in the visual spectrum.
Mm.
If I say Palo Santo or I say frankincense, those are associated with a certain frequency in the olfactory, in your smell spectrum. So magicians have at their disposal like sheet music that involves sight, taste, touch, sound, fragrance, like silks, right? Like different robes, different, like you have to construct the entire environment. And each of the frequencies, like green is associated with money, Lakshmi is associated with like abundance, right? Ganesha is associated with the destruction of obstacles. Raphael is associated with healing. So like, not only do you have all of these different symbols that represent a frequency that's programmed into the field, but now you have different cosmologies. You have the Greeks, you have the Egyptians, you have the Buddhists, you have so on and so forth, right? So there's all of these different languages, but they're just different frameworks pointing at the same thing that's in the quantum field. And now the reason that's important is that everything that we do, you've heard of Akashic records?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So everything that we do, everything that we say, every ritual we do, every blah, 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 even the microcosm, everything we do in our daily lives becomes a habit, right?
Yeah.
Right. So you have the habit of going to the gym. I go to the gym every day at 6. It just becomes a thing and it becomes easier to do, right?
Yeah.
As you build a habit, it becomes easier to do. The universe works in the same way. So over thousands and thousands of years, magicians have created certain habits that do certain things, like Lakshmi is a habit of the universe that represents abundance and wealth. And so when you use these symbols skillfully, when you understand what they mean and you weave them together with other ones that support them, you're now taking advantage of the habits that are ingrained into the field of the universe itself, not just your own, right? Like if we go back to the manifestation thing, we have to do affirmations. Why? Because we have a habit of negative self-talk. So we're trying to create a new habit within ourselves to affirmation so that we can actually get to that next level.
Uh-huh.
But the universe's habits are way stronger than ours. Try walking through a wall. The habit of that wall is a lot stronger than your belief that you can walk through the wall. Right?
Yeah.
This is the concept of karma, right? Karma is the result of habitual actions, the result of action. And so when you use a symbol that magicians over thousands and thousands of years have used for a certain purpose, you're tapping in to every single other magician who has used that symbol for thousands of, it's no longer just your own habits and beliefs. Now it's all of theirs too. And that's fucking powerful, man.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's also where the danger is. Because
Explain.
now you can burn yourself with it.
Uh,
Because there's so much more power involved and it's not yours. Right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing you mentioned was this requires action. Magic, I believe you
Yep.
mentioned requires
Yep.
action, but it's not. But you're not making things happen. So could you differentiate the two?
Yeah. So, making things happen is like, okay, I've got an accountability coach, I'm making sure that I show up on social media twice a day, 3 4 times a week. That, like, this is making things happen, is like following somebody's playbook that is like, oh, if you do this you get the success kind of thing, right? You're
Uh,
like, you're approaching it from a purely material paradigm of like, I have to do these things and then I'm going to get this result.
uh,
Taking aligned action, as they say in the manifestation space, is when you do the magic, certain things are going to occur to you that are in alignment with the objective, right? They're just going to occur to you as like, oh, I should call Derek and say hi to him. It's because what's happened is when you've done the magic, you've programmed the field and you've programmed your subconscious to say, this is the objective. And so now the external field and your internal subconscious are going to serve up to you the inspiration and the opportunities that you need to grab onto and say yes to in order to get you to shortcut to that objective. Right? So it's opportunity. Think of it this way: if you do a really big spell to get a I want a new girlfriend,
uh,
right? Right? Okay. I really want this new girlfriend, and you do all the, you go and learn about King Solomon and you learn about certain rituals and you like put all this really powerful magic into it and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna get a new girlfriend. But then all you do is sit on your couch, right? Now think of the universe as a field of potential, a field of opportunity. The opportunity for you to get a new girlfriend while you're sitting on your couch is very slim. Maybe a pizza girl comes by, or maybe somebody accidentally like gets launched in the air and flies through your window. But like the probability of that happening is really small. So the universe is going to need to make monumental changes in the field around you in order to meet that objective, which means you have to empower it with that much power. Now, let's just say same scenario, but this time you're sitting on your couch and it's like, oh, you should go for a walk in this park. It just pops into your head. And normally you'd say, no, I want to play this video game. But okay, now you've agreed, because you did the ritual, you've agreed, well, I'm going to take inspired action. Well, this is the inspiration. It came to you. So you're not planning this. It came to you. The opportunity arose at you said yes to it. You got up off the couch, you walked out your door, you went to the park, and then the inspiration said, why don't you sit on that bench? And you're like, well, why would I sit on that bench? Nobody's there. But because you did the ritual, you did the magic, you're trusting these inspirations that come to you. And you're like, okay, I'm just gonna fucking go sit on the bench and look like an idiot.
uh,
And like 10 minutes later, this girl's walking her dog, trips on a fucking pebble that's next to you on the bench, and you like reach out and catch her,
uh.
and she looks up at you and your eyes connect and you're like, holy shit, it just fucking happened. That's what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. A clarification here. So what's the difference between, so say someone's walking by, um, and you initiating a discussion, would that be forcing things to happen versus, oh,
Not necessarily. Like it it may occur to you, like, okay, if you go to the park and you're like, okay, I'm here now, I have to, or
yeah,
I should go and talk to this, like, all the
yeah,
girls that I can,
yeah,
that's making it happen, right?
yeah,
When you go there and you're like, oh, I'm here now, I have to do something, right? Like,
yeah,
there's that feeling of I have to.
yeah,
It's very different from I just I got the it just occurred to me to sit on the bench, and there's no reason. I'm not sitting on the bench because I want a girl. I'm sitting on a bench because it just occurred to me to sit on the bench,
yeah,
right? So like that's the, and I mean it's a really subtle difference, and I'll say you'll know it when you experience it, right?
hmm,
um because there won't be a should, there won't be a, I'm doing this to get an outcome. You're doing it because the magic's telling you to.
yeah.
Yeah.
I love that explanation. So let's explore your journey to magic. How did you come to magic?
Oh my god. Well, how did I come into magic? So I get this is kind of like a common story in in certain circles. um I'll I'll just I'll just say, like, my parents are really weird. They're both Buddhists. So I didn't grow up with the normal Catholic or Christian kind of stuff that we do in the West. My dad was Tantric Buddhist. My mom was Zen Buddhist. Um, and like a dutiful teenager, I rejected all of that when, in my teens, and got really dark with the high school stuff, and got really good at making money in my 20s. But then, like, in my 30s, I started to question, why the fuck am I doing all of this? A little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. I started to notice I would set an objective and then I'd achieve an objective. I was really good at that. Every objective I ever this was me manifesting without knowing it, right? Every objective I'd set, I could see it, I'd envision it, and then I'd have it within a couple of months. Just like, I wanted that promotion. I got a fucking company to pay for my master's in business administration, my MBA. I got a company to pay for it,
Mhm.
just because I decided they should. But like at some point, I'm like, man, it's really weird. Like, no matter how many things I achieve, no matter how many goals, like, I get this promotion, I get the girl, I get the Lexus, I get the 5 bedroom, like, I keep getting all these things, and I'm happy for like 5 seconds. And within that 5 seconds, my mind moves to, okay, what's next? Right. And then
Yeah,
I'm no longer happy. Now I'm focused on not having the other thing that I want.
yeah,
But as I started to notice these tricks that my mind was playing on me, uh, and that's when I started to, like, maybe go back into my Buddhist roots a little bit. Of like, oh, maybe there was something there about that. I don't really remember. Sorry, I'm just gonna silence my phone here. Um, I didn't really remember all the details. Like, I remembered like meditation, and stuff, but I didn't understand how meditation led into like freedom from the matrix and freedom from like the samsaric forces in your own mind. I didn't None of that. I didn't get that as a kid, right? I just got, like, meditation was cool. Um, but the thing, like, I didn't really grab the mantle of the hero's journey at that point. I kind of, I'm I'm the guy who like resists. I'm like the guy who resists the journey and everything gets taken away from him and then he goes on the journey. I'm not the guy who's just like, all right, let's go. You know? So in that context, I would get the tower card and then it would like everything's been taken away, everything's burning down. Now it's time to go, young Padawan.
Yes.
um so what happened to me was I found myself standing in front of a doctor and he's looking at his checkboard and he's like, well, sir, you have obstructive sleep apnea. And I'm like, okay, whatever that is. Like, okay, what do we got to do? I got to lose some weight. I was 240 pounds at this point. I was a big guy. And but I knew a really good tailor, so nobody knew it. um and so I'm like, okay, like what do I gotta do? I gotta go to the gym, I gotta lose some weight. Like my throat's obviously very, I didn't know at the time, but it was very inflamed, caused a lot of snoring. It
Uh-huh.
closed my air passageways at night. And he's like, you could die any night between now and your normal death. You could just die from a heart attack because your heart's getting overloaded by the lack of breath. I'm like, okay, well, let's deal with this. Let's take care of it. Like, give me the prognosis, the prescription. And he's like, dude, you couldn't lose enough weight to solve this. This is just the way you are, you know. And just a little aside here, I fucking love that the guy did that. I don't think he did it intentionally, but like, because he wanted to sell me this device, and I bought the device, but I remember that moment, like I looked him in the eye, and I was like, no, I don't believe that for a second. I fucking reject that narrative entirely. That is not my reality. That is not how this life's going to go. And that was the mantle. That was the thing. That was the thing the universe needed to take away from me to trigger the hero's journey, right? To like say, no, I am going to stand up and I am going to change things and I'm going to like, take that step. And I did. Like, yeah, I bought the device, I used it once and I tossed it in the closet and I'm like, no, this isn't it. This is like, there's something else here. And so, you talk about, I was talking about how the universe kind of gives you like these little hints,
Yeah,
once
nudges.
you're ready. There had been this ad I was seeing for an Audible book called Rebel Buddha. I had been seeing it for probably a couple months at that point, but I saw it again after that conversation with the doctor. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll click on it. Now my mind is open, right? Now I'm like willing to accept. So I click on it and I read it, and like the premise is basically like, something's wrong. You know something's not quite right with your reality or with the universe, but you don't really know what it is. But I'll tell you what it is. Deep, deep down inside of you, deep down beyond all of that, beyond all these thoughts, all these feelings, all these emotions, deep down in that core, there's a Buddha, and he's a rebel Buddha, and he's pissed off, and he wants out. I mean, for me at that time, that was a great narrative. I ate that
Uh-huh.
shit. I ate that up. You know what I mean? Like, and that just, and that book had like some meditative instructions to go along with it. And it reminded me of all the stuff I did as a child. And so I just like, I started like 10, 10 minutes a day, dude. Like literally just 10 minutes a day. Anybody can do that. But it has to be the correct application of the correct technique. And this is where the scientist and the experimentation comes in, right? Is finding that right technique and applying it. Like, you know, you don't have to meditate for an hour. Within 3 months, I had this fucking wild experience. Now, the guy that we're talking about at this time, the Cian that we're talking about, did not believe in angels, did not believe in magic, did not believe in deities or any of the ghosts or any of this stuff. It was like, yeah, you know, these are nice stories that people tell themselves to, you know, feel special or whatever, or like explain the unexplainable, blah 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 blah. That was my perspective at that time. So imagine my surprise when I'm sitting in my office in that state of mind, meditating for my 10 minutes. And all of a sudden the fucking office disappears. And right in like higher definition than this Zoom screen, right? Right in front of me is this blue Buddha dude with the cosmos coming out of his head, looking at me as if he's me, and I feel like I don't exist. Very, very strange experience for a person like that. And all of that disappeared, but nothing was really ever the same after that. You know, I stopped smoking that day. I stopped drinking coffee. I stopped drinking alcohol. I stopped like doing drugs. Like I didn't smoke weed anymore. Like literally that day, all of those things just fucking evaporated. Now, I mean, since then I've, you know, I have the odd coffee or the odd glass of wine or anything. I'm not like a religious, like, you know, I'm not religious against that stuff. But for me at that time, it was necessary for all of those things to evaporate. Because it showed me that I didn't need them. And then my
And
whole body transformed. It was like crazy.
and you saw this Buddha in your visual field or in your mind's eye with your eyes closed
I
in
mean, I felt
meditation?
like my eyes were open. I mean, they were closed, but like I wasn't aware of my eyelids, I'll say. Like I was like there in that experience. Like I could have
Yeah.
touched him if I had
Uh-huh.
hands. You
Uh-huh.
know, like it was like, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So then things begin to change after this encounter. And then the question that brought us here is, yeah, what led you to magic? So then now things are changing. You're quitting drinking, smoking, drugs. Um, you're losing the weight. And
Yeah,
now what?
yeah. Eventually, like I found a teacher. I got brought to India. I did a month out there. I came back. I learned yoga. Like things really, really accelerated for me. And you know, along that way, within a couple of years, I became a Zen Buddhist priest. I couldn't even tell you, you know, how that happened, other than it was just a series of coincidences and like and learning things and having really deep insight, you know. But there's something, I started becoming aware that the Buddhist cosmology, the Buddhist line of thought was also missing something.
Uh-huh.
And this is like it actually a lot of the Eastern teachings. The Taoists are they're fine. They've got a pretty good balance, but like anything coming out of India, it's missing a certain component of reality that's necessary in the West, right? And you'll see it exemplified in a lot of spiritual people in the West are broke.
Uh-huh.
And they're broke because they hate money. Like they won't tell you they hate money, but like if you talk to them for about 5 minutes, you'll figure out that they actually hate money, and because it was used to control them at some point, and now they've become enlightened and have thrown off the shackles of society and are now free, but they're free at what cost, right? Like now they can't have impact in in the way that they could if they were able to wield this energy properly.
Yes.
There is a and this is another misunderstanding, right? Like I've got guys who like understand ancient Chinese and have translated ancient Buddhist texts, and there's one text, I can't remember its name, but there's like 19 aspects of a great bodhisattva,
Okay.
right? And one of those 19 aspects is a bodhisattva shall collect as much bedding and housing and gold and silver as possible so that they may be able to provide an environment for lesser beings within which to practice. And this is what gave rise to monasteries, was that great like practitioners who were able to magnetize wealth and abundance and donations and stuff to them were then encouraged to use that to create an environment where others could practice without having to worry about those things, so they could put more energy into it so they could become great as well eventually. That turned in somewhere in the history, that turned into money is bad and spiritual people don't touch money, because the monks didn't touch money because they were taken care of by the great ones who were bringing the money in. And but do you see how the misunderstanding happened?
For sure, I definitely see it in the West, and that was my question. You're going on all these adventures, and then I'm like, how did, and like people listening as well, it's like, how did you afford this? How did you finance these adventures? And that's kind of a question that I'm wondering with myself too. Like, I am free, I'm free, I'm free, and it's like, but how am I? How do I magnetize myself to the financial riches that will allow me to spread um, my light and energy all over? And I feel like that's an obstacle that I'm personally coming up with, and I know many people listening, and especially in the West, in the spiritual people, it's an encounter that they are running up into a wall.
Well, let me know. Let me tell you how insidious the programming is. Like we all like you know what TV is, right? Like we're all
Yeah,
TV. They call it television programming.
yeah.
You know why they call it programming?
Because it
Because it
programs you.
programs you.
Yeah,
It programs your belief fields to believe certain things.
yeah.
Okay. Now, and this manifestation people already know this, right? They already know that you have to deprogram people, and that's why they have like the shadow work, and they have the the affirmations and this sort of stuff. But like just to show
Uh,
you how insidious it is, you've watched The Simpsons, right?
yeah.
Isn't it a great show? It's fucking hilarious, right?
Uh-huh.
So benign. It's just a funny, it's just an easy thing, like how could that be bad?
Oh, it's programming. It's programming.
Well, think about this, okay? So let's think about, you know, um The Simpsons, and it's Springfield, right? Springfield.
Yeah.
So who was wealthy in Springfield?
The bad guy, Mr. Burns.
Mr. Burns. And you said bad guy. He wasn't really bad, was he? He did pretty conniving things though, right? But look at his character relative to all the others. Everyone's kind of happy-go-lucky, and he's very like, he's got his fingers together. He's got the long nose and like the warts, and his only friend is his servant,
Yeah.
right? So now think about that at a these are symbols. These are magical symbols that are being used to
Uh-huh.
program you.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
he's alone. His only friend is somebody he's paying.
Yeah.
He's ugly. He's mean. He's conniving.
People don't like him.
People don't like him, but he's the only one who's wealthy. Now, what do you think that tells your subconscious?
That
Now,
money is bad.
can you think of any other examples in
Every,
TV? Like
like Disney movies, like story,
all of it,
storybooks, everything.
all of it. The evil, conniving, angry, manipulative, wealthy avatar
Yeah,
is pervasive in TV programming.
yeah.
And this is why I'll tell you, a lot of wealthy people don't let their kids watch TV.
And like parents watch these programmings and they subconsciously program their children with these messages, and it's reinforced by the programming.
Right? You know, like, I mean, wealth isn't hard. You know, it's a process, just like anything else. But do they teach it to you? No. Do you want to know, like, what do you learn in school? You learn math, you learn English, you learn
You learn to fall in line.
yeah,
You learn to be a worker.
you learn
You
to
learn to be obedient.
you learn to repeat what the teacher says,
Uh-huh.
right? And if you repeat the wrong thing, you get a bad grade,
Uh-huh.
right? There's no experimentation. You're not building knowledge. You're repeating things.
You learn the concept of right and wrong, good and bad, pass and fail.
In accordance to their
Yes.
paradigm, their
Yeah.
definition, right?
Yes.
Now, let's just go one step further. Math. Okay, when I was in high school, I don't know what they do now, but when I was in high school in the 90s, math had two tracks. Okay, you had the track for the smart kids, and that was the calculus track. And then you had the track for the dumb kids, and you know what they called it?
Applied?
Consumer math, right? Consumer math.
Yeah.
Guess what they taught you in consumer math?
I don't know. I was in
They
calculus.
taught you how to manage credit cards, how to pay bills, and how to pay your taxes. Why do you think they taught you that?
To be a consumer?
Because that's what they care about. They want you to work for money, but just enough money that you can pay your bills and taxes on time, and you have very little left over for yourself at the end. In fact, they train you so that you will have none left over at the end. And this is why 80% of North America live paycheck to paycheck, because that's how they're trained. You're not trained to pay yourself first. This is one of the most, if anyone takes anything from this discussion, like fuck magic, fuck all that stuff, you want to take one lesson from me. This is my number one lesson to anybody who's willing to listen. It's pay yourself first. So I'm not saying don't pay your bills. I'm not saying any of that. I'm saying you are bill number one. Right? So just imagine, like, okay, I got my telco bill, I got my TV bill, I got my rent. Which one of those do you pay first?
Yourself.
Rent. You pay rent first. Well, no,
okay.
Today.
Okay, yeah, rent.
Rent's always the most important one, right? Like you pay your cell phone bill after rent, like because the telco will let you, you can be a month late or whatever, right? But your landlord, he does not like it when you don't pay your rent, right?
Yeah.
Or your mortgage or whatever. Well, you just become another one of those bills.
Yeah.
Right. So say you say maybe it's 5%, maybe it's 2%, maybe it's 10%. Every bit of money that comes into your account, no matter what it is, you always pay yourself first, and you put that into another account. And there's more advanced teachings as to what to do with that, but that's the number one teaching on wealth and energy, so it's not just money, it's just also energy, is always pay yourself first, right? So this is why I do my practices in the morning. Yoga, meditation. I'm taking the time of the day that I've been gifted, and I'm paying myself first with time. And then I'm taking the energy of money that I've been gifted, and I'm paying myself first with money. And this allows me to build my power.
Let's explore this further, because let's say people pay themselves first. They put money in aside for themselves. But what most people are been conditioned to do with this money for themselves is to buy more things, because the message they're told is like, you are not good enough if you don't have this car or this skin
Yeah,
cream or this
yeah,
this da 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 da. And then you're not actually paying yourself. You paid yourself momentarily, but then it's being refunneled back into um like things that you don't need,
that's right. So
and it
that's
keeps you
why
in that
it's
place of lack.
so that's that, you know, that, I mean, I've been teaching this for so many years, like a lot of coaches, a lot of small business owners who are in that lack mindset of like, oh, you know, selfish to like pay myself first, or you know, like, how can I, like, I'm already struggling, how can I divert funds to do this, right? And like it's really, it's a decision, you know, because like there's never enough money to go around, honestly, right? There's always more bills, there's always more things you want to buy, there's
Yeah.
always more and more. So it's really about priorities,
Uh-huh.
right? You have to prioritize building your power, or you're always going to get drained by all of the things around you trying to pull your power out of you, whether
Uh-huh.
it's your time or your money or your sexual energy,
Uh-huh.
right? There's all of these things around you in the field, which the Indians call Mara, that want to pull your energy out of you, that want to drain you of these three forms of energy. And you are the only one who can decide, I'm going to retain my energy in these three forms. I'm going to find a way to hold on to it. And the thing is, like, I can get into like, okay, well, you know, you put it into a savings account, or you go and invest it, or you do. There are a lot of different strategies on what to do with it. The
Uh-huh.
key is that it's not spent on something that disappears, on something that's consumed,
Uh-huh.
right? It always has to be put somewhere where it maintains its energy form. That would be like an asset, or an
Uh-huh.
investment, or a savings account, or a business opportunity, right?
What about education?
Education is something you retain,
Yeah.
right? Right? So yes, spending this sort of pay yourself first thing, you're exchanging money for knowledge that goes into your brain that gives you more capacity, right?
Uh-huh.
So the key here is that you're building up your own personal capacity, whether it's sexual energy, whether it's money, or whether it's time. It's investing in you and your worthiness,
Uh-huh.
right? And you building your confidence and building your energetic capacity. Now, a lot of people are like, well, that sounds really selfish, right? Aren't we supposed to, like, you know, give money to the poor, and like just da da da, like all this stuff? Like, why are you like, you know, I have to take care of my family, why am I paying myself first? You know, that sounds really selfish. Well, you can't help your family if you're broke all the time. You can't, like, maybe you can donate money like $5 a month or $20 a month or something to charity if you're broke. Like, you can still do that. But that's not, like, is that really, does that make it okay? No, right? But if you are paying yourself first and you're investing in your capacity to hold energy, I'm not even just saying money, but just energy in general, you're building your capacity to hold energy. Like, let's just go back to another manifestation technique. Like attracts like. The more energy you have, the more you attract. The more money you have, the more you attract. And the faster and faster it starts to come. So literally just holding it, even in just a bank account. I have gold sitting on my altar because I know the properties of resonance and vibration of the universe, and that like attracts like. So if I have these things here, it makes it more likely for that energy to come to me and for me to hold on to it. And then when I am in flow, in abundance, I'm overflowing now. I'm not giving from a place of lack. I'm not following the manifestation technique of like, okay, 10, 10, 10 or whatever. I've got to like give 10% of this and this to, like, I'm giving because I feel abundant, because I've done the work and I've figured out what it feels like to retain energy in my system, right? Even like get rid of all of the esoteric stuff. Like the Muggles know this, right? Like Napoleon Hill taught this. Like there's psychology out there that says like, everyone has a number that they're comfortable with. Was like maybe $5,000 in the bank, maybe it's $5 in the bank, maybe it's $100. There's a number that everyone's subconsciously comfortable with, and if your account goes over that, you spend it back down to that number. For some people, it's zero, right? The key is to find that number and keep pushing, keep like notice when it pulls back and go, oh, I found my number. And you got to keep pushing, because that's like you're on your edge. You're like, imagine you're filling this energetic bucket, and you need to learn how to expand the bucket so that it doesn't just like keep flowing back down to $100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these are things that you teach to your coaching clients, and we're going to get into your coaching in just a moment, but there's a question I wanted to ask earlier, but this will be the time now. So in your bio, I listed all the amazing things that you do: Zen priest, AI coach, tarot and psychic guide, ritual master, financial wizard, business strategist meets metaphysician. What is the overarching mission amongst all these titles that represents what you do, what your goal here with all these things? What is your life mission
Well,
in this moment?
so yeah, like I'll say like the core mission I have, like the abstract one, is to reduce the suffering of all beings. That's like the core, that's the driving force behind all of it. That's my Buddhist sort of paradigm. The more earthly sort of level of the mission is to marry Eastern and Western esoteric technology and science together in order to transform people's lives. Right?
Yes.
It's like I am still thoroughly grounded in science. I take notes, I run experiments, I have hypotheses, and I test them. Even with all of the esoteric stuff, even with the manifestation, the magic, I'm designing an app that's going to help people keep notes and design rituals and magic spells and things like this. I'm programming that. I'm also a coder, by the way. So but like, as far as what do I provide clients, like what is it that like I do? If I go back and I look at the clients I've had, they've all been like small business owners, but really powerful ones, like rock stars. I had a guy who was he's a real estate guy. he was making something like 60K a month, right? But he wanted more, you know. And the thing that I do is I help people get beyond, like I was telling you about that the bucket, that
Yeah.
there's like there's like an invisible barrier that keeps you from getting into that next level. I find that and I obliterate it.
Yeah.
You know, so for this guy, how did that show up? He was a master planner, right? He had all of these business plans. He came up with a new idea for real estate business, and it was like, being an MBA, I went over it with him and I was like, yeah, this is a great plan, so what's the problem, man? He's like, fuck, dude, like I just need the funding to launch this. And like, he was making good money, but he needed, like, this is a big plan. It was a huge plan.
Uh-huh.
So he knew a billionaire, like he had his phone number, right? He'd even done the background research. He had the guy's phone number. All he had to do was send a text message to this guy. That's it. And he knew it, but for the life of him, he couldn't send it. He just couldn't do it. He's just like, he'd always come up with these excuses, or this or that and the other, or something else, or no, I'm going to fine tune the plan a little bit more, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to get the website ready because he might want to see the web, blah, 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 blah. You know, you don't even have to be playing at this level to recognize there's all this blah, blah, blah that stops you from doing that one thing that you know is really just going to push your business forward.
Uh-huh.
He even knew it, but he couldn't do it. Right. And so I worked with him for like a couple of weeks. Right. And like, we had a 3-month contract, but like, I worked with him for a couple of weeks. We did, unbeknownst to him, some magic, but like we did like magic, we did Zen, we did some mindset stuff, and a lot of really subconscious reprogramming. And then one day I get a message from him, the day after our session. He's like, dude, I sent it. I've already got $1 million from him. Like one day later, he's like, he was so in, he sent him money like right away. They didn't even sign contracts. The guy was just like, I want, so that's the kind of thing. And again, I mean, that maybe that's an unrelatable example, but I have plenty of other examples. Like one guy, call him Chris, he wanted another child. He wanted to move to California. He wanted to take his family with him. Like he had these dreams for himself. So like, they weren't even business, but they required the business to perform, right? But he could never seem to like, oh, I just have to make a little bit more money before I go, or oh, I just have to like get this like program out, or oh, I just have to. There was always some reason that he couldn't have his dreams. Now, what I'm going to tell you is we're all, and myself included, we're all making up these reasons that we can't have our dreams. We're making them up, because I've seen it so many times. I have a couple of sessions with these guys or women. I worked with this amazing painter out of California, and she sold so many paintings after her work. It was crazy. All of a sudden, the reasons just evaporate, and it's just like, oh yeah, I can have my dreams, and just moved to California, adopted this kid, like, boom, 2 months into our program, fucking guy just moves to California, and I'm like, yeah, you got your dream. So like, I'm not like, I'm quite capable of helping people with their business, right? Like I've been running business for like 22 years. I'm a master's in business administration, but honestly, the people who come to me for business with business problems, it's always a deep emotional subconscious problem where they're actually preventing themselves from moving forward in some way. And that's what I do.
And is that you mentioned the shadow a few times? Is that related to the shadow work to break past that barriers?
You could call it, like, I wouldn't say what I'm doing is shadow work. I'd say it's
Okay.
subconscious reprogramming.
Okay.
Um, Shadow work is more around, like, how are you sabotaging your success in very negative ways, right?
Uh-huh.
How are your emotional outbursts affecting your relationship? Like, this is more about how you're sabotaging moving forward through convincing yourself not to take action.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's
Let's
a
let's
little different.
examine let's examine them both. So let's first examine the shadow work about how your emotional outbursts are sabotaging your relationships. Once
Mhm.
we bring awareness to that, how do we heal that?
I'm gonna say right now that's a whole area of expertise that I don't specialize in.
Okay.
Yeah, I like shadow work's like absolutely necessary. I do it. Lots of people do it. Lots of people teach it. It's not like I just don't play in that space.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
For someone
Yeah.
curious to explore that more, you're just saying find a shadow work coach and then that will
Yeah.
help direct them on that process. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Totally.
for reprogramming our subconscious beliefs, that's your realm. And how do we
Yeah.
do that?
Well, so I have a process. I call it Cartesian alchemy. There's a lot of people have different names for it. It is grounded in Eastern and Western esoteric magic.
Uh-huh.
Like a Kartika is in Buddhist philosophy, there's the idea of a Dakini, which is this very powerful deific woman who, severs the fetters that bind you, destroys your obstacles, kind of like Ganesha does. And they use a Kartika. So I call it Kartikan alchemy because we go into a session or sessions with, there's preparation and coaching like wrapped around all of it, but like at its core, we go into a session and I bring in what I can only describe with as little ego as possible, this thing kind of called like a Buddha field,
Okay.
right? Not calling myself a Buddha, but it's like this energetic field that I sit in myself, right? I have a certain level of depth and training, and when you're in my presence, like, I can share it with you. So we do a meditation, I say some stuff, you listen, and then like slowly you'll feel your body starting to relax and you start to get into that state. And for a lot of people, it feels just like going into meditation, but it's like it's going way deeper into meditation than they're used to having
Uh-huh.
access to, right? So that's what I
Uh-huh.
mean by field, is like my field opens up the possibility for a much deeper meditation than is normally accessible.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And this isn't special to me. Any meditation teacher can do this. This
Yes.
is a very common thing, and it's why it's necessary to have a teacher in a lot of cases to progress,
Mm-hmm.
because they transmit to you the feeling or a state of being that's different from what you're used to.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to get into some of your teachers, but I have another question I want to
Yeah.
clarify. As you help your clients manifest their dreams, bring their dreams into reality, what if they don't know their dream? What it is they want? How do you help your clients with that?
Yeah, then I have a process that's designed to help people find their purpose, right?
Uh,
And at the end of the day, it's kind of funny that we're talking about this because it's very meta. Um, it's all about their own personal hero's journey, right? Everyone has an inflection point at some, like, or multiple inflection points at some point in their past, in their life,
uh-huh.
where all of a sudden their life changed because they realized something.
Uh-huh.
And those are very important. You know, a lot of people just take it as like, yay, you know, I overcame something, that's awesome, and then they let it go. But actually, there's a reason that you learned that and that it worked for you. And guess what? The person you were just before that inflection point, there's a lot of people just like that person. And because you were that person, all of those people will relate with you.
Uh,
Meaning, now you have purpose. And your purpose is to liberate all those people who will relate with you through your just transmitting your own experience of that transition. Because you better believe they want it. They just don't know.
mhm,
They just don't know how to do it yet. Well, you do, because you just did it. You had the
uh,
realization. So that's the exercise I take people with to find what it is they want.
yeah, I like that because I feel like where some confusion lays is like what is like, for example, what is my dream versus like the dream I've been programmed to think that is my dream from like culture, parents, programming, television. And so you think like that's your dream, but your strategy that you just said helps clarify like what is like the true dream, not what you've been conditioned to think or
Bingo.
believe is your dream.
Well, and that came out of you deconditioning yourself, right? So it's
Uh,
not the condition. It's actually, oh, I got rid of a key piece of conditioning that liberated me in some way.
uh, uh,
Right?
yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. So yeah, let's get to some of the mentors and helpers that have helped you on your path, that have brought this awareness to you. I'm sure there are many, but let's take a moment just to acknowledge some of the people that have helped guide you on your journey. Who were they, and what were your key takeaways you've learned from them that you've embodied in your current being?
All right. So, okay. So there's a three key ones.
Okay.
Um, I've had so many teachers, but like the big ones, right? So
Yeah.
my first like really official teacher who had like such a huge impact on me was Darlene Tataran.
Uh,
She's from Selkirk, Manitoba,
uh,
and she's been a family friend. She's known me since before I was born, you know.
uh,
And she's a Buddhist teacher. She was my first Zen teacher. Um, and but she taught me like the correct method to accelerate the deconditioning process in the mind through meditation, right? There's, like, maybe I can get into it if you want a little bit
yeah.
later, but
Yeah.
there's a very specific process that, anyone who finds meditation hard, if I give you this little 5-minute spiel, you'll now figure out that it was never hard and you were just making it hard, and now you can do it just like a master.
Uh,
It's very simple. So just ask me about that
yeah.
after.
Yeah.
The second one was her teacher was Junpo. He's now left us. He was the abbot of Hollow Bones Zen, and he's the guy that made me a priest.
Uh,
um Against my own better judge, I fucking didn't want like I don't want to be a fucking priest, man. Like, no, like I just hated the word, even, like, because I just so many negative connotations in the field about that word, right? But
uh-huh.
obviously it's not that, right? And eventually I accepted the challenge. But he taught me, so whereas Darlene taught me like meditation and like deconditioning the mind and bringing focus, he taught me this like big open expanse of awareness that tapped me into like the core of my being that's untouchable, right? And it reconditioned my being in a way where I was now no longer identified with the body as me, as my sense of self. Now I feel like I'm something outside of the body in some way, right? And the body is like an apparition of mind that I get to like utilize. So that was a teaching that he brought to me. And then he's not a direct teacher, but like I feel like I've read so much of his stuff that he is a teacher. Ken
Okay.
Wilber,
Okay.
he the one book I really recommend of his is called The Religion of Tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
And the key teaching that I took away from him is that there are actually multiple axes of development for a human in sort of spiritual technology. And most systems of thought only deal with one of them. So for example, spirituality, whether you're doing like tantra or ayahuasca ceremonies or like any of this sort of neo spirituality stuff, it deals with waking up. So waking up technology is the first two steps I talked about, those first two teachers, is they're mostly about waking up, about like deconditioning the mind, disidentifying with the body, and becoming some like changing your state of mind in a way where you have different realizations. So it's state training. So that's only one aspect of development. There's many others, but there's a key other one that is important in spirituality, which is actually embodied by a lot of the more organized religions, which is called growing up, which is like morality training and compassion and learning to embody the kind of energy that where you would be able to say something like I want to benefit all beings and mean it, right? Where your sense of self actually goes beyond the ego. So your sense of self is no longer like I, it becomes we, and then it becomes us and them, not us against them, right? And then it becomes us and them and all other beings or the entire cosmos, or there's these various layers of the onion where your sense of self actually begins to expand, and they call that growing up. That's one aspect of it that Ken talks about. And most neo spirituality technologies and that like completely miss out on that. And so it's become my mission to really infuse technology that helps people expand on both of those axes in whatever I'm doing, whether I'm just teaching a meditation class as a Zen priest, or I'm like helping somebody transform their life or business as a coach.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Those are three incredible mentors, and I'm really excited to delve more into them myself. I'm familiar with Darlene because you've talked to me about her, but the other two I don't know as much. And even Darlene, like she's here local, and I look forward to sitting in one of her sessions, just delving more into these three because this profound impact they've had on you, and I'm sure I can learn a lot from all three. Um, One of my favorite authors, Stephen Pressfield, he describes resistance. He talks about resistance, and it's that negative force in the world that keeps us from fulfilling our dreams. What have you found out about resistance and your strategies that you've honed to overcome that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. We tend to resist the exact thing that's gonna push us into our next level, you know?
And you talked about it yourself that
Yeah,
you often do that, and then the universe smacks you
that's right.
because yeah,
That's right.
you get those nudges, and if you don't listen to the nudges, they get louder and they get louder, and
And then you get a shower
eventually,
card.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So resistance is a fabrication of the mind. And so I'll lean on Joe Dispenza a little bit to kind of navigate this.
Uh,
Joe talks about the box that the mind paints you into. He calls it the comfort zone. But he also says there's two bookends to the box, right? He calls it, so on one side, he calls it the predictable future, and on the other side, he calls it the certain past. And you have these two bookends, right? So just imagine this. You wake up in the morning and what do? The first 5 minutes, most people are visualizing, what do I have to do today?
Most people go on their phone.
Or you go on your phone, you check your calendar, you're looking for like, what do I need to do? What's the most important things for me to do? You've got this checklist of your day. So however it is you do it, you visualize your day, and then your day happens. And it happens in accordance with how you visualize it. Manifestation. And then at the end of the day, the other bookend, you go and review, okay, what happened today? Oh, fuck, I really wish I hadn't said that to that guy, blah blah. You kind of go over like the good and the bad sort of the day. And that's the certain past, right? So you wake up in the morning and you visualize the predictable future. You go to bed at night and you visualize the certain past. Right, I got my hands on either side of my head here, and that's painting you into your comfort zone, into your current situation. Now, if we know manifestation at all, whatever you visualize is what you're going to get.
Yeah.
So if you can't break yourself out of that, you're just going to get your present situation, and the mind is addicted to being able to predict things. This is
familiarity.
It's an evolutionary force. If you weren't able to predict things got chaotic, you'd get eaten by a tiger. Right? So it's rightfully addicted to being able to predict things, but we don't live in that world anymore. So we need to like get into the realm of the unpredictable. We need to tempt the universe to surprise me. Fuck yeah. Drop $1 million in my bank account. Have a billionaire fucking call me. Surprise the shit out of me. I don't want to know how my day's gonna go. I want something fantastic to happen. But the thing is, as soon as you start to imagine those things, this is where the resistance comes, right? And the resistance is a feature of your mind that's trying to keep you there. It's just your own mind telling a story, and as long as you believe it, you will stay in the predictable future and the certain past.
It's trying to keep you safe. It's trying to keep you in your bookends. So how do we burn down those bookends?
How do we burn down those bookends? Well, you can start by, instead of looking at your calendar and your messages for the first 5 minutes of the day, how about you start imagining something that kind of scares you, something that you want that's maybe a little bit of a stretch, right? And then notice what's the counterpoints to that are coming up, right? So like I said, like visualization is key in anything, even in magic. You need to be able to see the future that you want. But then the things that come up, the resistance, the counterpoints, the bullshit sort of stories that come up in your mind, those point to the work, right? And so then you need to work with somebody like me to address those, or like another, somebody like Joe Dispenza or somebody like Junpo, right? Like to dig into your own mind, and or manifestation baby, she's really good too, to dig into your own mind and reprogram it in a way that will have it accept the future that you want. Once you can do that, then like it becomes just a matter of accepting the direction that the universe provides you.
Yes. The other factor that comes into play here is fear. For many, fear is a real factor. Again, preventing them from moving forward, preventing them for going to that Joe Dispenza retreat, preventing them from getting on that coaching call from you, preventing from picking up that book, preventing them for X, Y, Z. What have you learned about fear? How do you use it? How do you overcome it? What have you learned about fear?
Oh yeah. Well, Manifestation Babe has a fucking great catchphrase, and it's feel the fear and do it anyways. I think that was her. Feel the fear and
Uh-huh.
do it anyway. You know what courage is? Courage isn't being fearless. It's not. Courage is you're actually connected to your heart enough that when the fear arises, you feel the fear in your heart. You actually feel the physical sensation of fear and you recognize it as fear and you go, aha, that means I should do this. What happens to most people, because they're not meditative, they're not connected to their bodies. Oh, did I lose you?
No, I'm here.
Oh, for some, okay, there we are. Okay. They're not connected to their bodies. Is the fear arises as a feeling in their heart, but they don't notice the feeling. And then all those bullshit stories come up because the mind is constantly making up stories based off of the sensations in the body. And because most people are stuck in their minds, they just go based off of whatever their mind is telling them. Don't do that. That's bad. You'll never succeed. Don't even bother trying. Da 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 da. You're not worth it. Like, you'll never fucking make it. And a lot of those stories are ones that your parents put there. I'm just going to say that. And so the trick here really is to, like, well, like meditate so you can get some space between you and your thoughts. But then the next step is to do some sort of physical practice, whether it's yoga or qigong or there's a zillion things, even just like pranayama, breathing.
Um,
So you've got space between yourself and your thoughts, but the thoughts are still coming up. But now you need to actually dive into the body and connect with the sensations in the body. So you can start to recognize that before those thoughts come up in the mind, there's actually a sensation in the body that you don't like. And you're avoiding feeling it by fabricating all of these negative thoughts. If you can figure out how to stay centered in the body as it's giving you this discomfort, which you call fear, if you can stay in it and breathe through it and allow it to, like, you don't, the negative thoughts don't come up. You stay in the sensations and you feel the fear, and then you're able to actually do the thing anyways, because the
uh,
thoughts didn't come up that are going to stop you.
uh-huh, uh-huh. And one of the strategies to get here is meditation. You asked me to bring you back to that process that Darlene taught you, that 5 minute spiel to get someone to meditate where they weren't able to tap into that deep level of beingness. So let's get that, and then I have a final few questions that I ask every guest.
All right. So yeah, so this is my gift to the world. This is, this is the freebie that just unlocks everybody. Okay. So the number one complaint I have when I ask people how their meditation is or how their practice is, if they even have one, is, seeing, like, I try to meditate, but every time I sit down, I just, like, my mind's so busy, I get lost in thought. It just feels futile, and then I
Uh,
just get frustrated, and it just doesn't, meditation just doesn't work for me. And I'm like, oh, good, it's working. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? So what you have to understand is how meditation actually works. Okay, so now you can meditate on any sensation. You could have a candle that you look at. You could focus on the breath at the tip of your nose. You could focus on your lungs, inhaling and exhaling. There's a lot. They're all good. And you can use this technique with all of them. So for purpose of demonstration, let's just say we're focusing on the breath at the tip of our nose. So it's like inhale, I'm inhaling, exhale, I'm exhaling. 1. Inhale, I'm inhaling, exhaling, I'm exhaling. 2. And so you go through that and you try to count to 10. If you make it to 10 without losing the sensations at the tip of your nose, you just go back to 0 and start over. So there's no game here. You're just trying to see how far up to 10 you can get, and usually it's about 3 or 4. But that's not the point. The point isn't to get to 10. And this is why. So let's say somewhere around 3 or 4, you realize you were counting, but your mind lost the sensations of the breath and you were off in la la land. You're like, oh yeah, like I gotta make sure I prepare dinner for the kids, and then I got that rust on the car I've got to get addressed, and fuck, my boss is really getting down on my case, and that, that whole chain of thoughts, right? So now the interesting thing about that, there's 2 interesting things. First off, we don't notice the moment where we lose the sensations of the breath and that first thought comes up. Like that, we know it happened, but we don't actually notice it happening, right? At some point, maybe the 3rd or 4th thought, and you're thinking about your boss, you're like, oh shoot, I'm lost in thought. And then you remember the other 3 thoughts that came before it. But you weren't there while they came. You just remember that they were there. And you're like, oh, I'm lost in thought at this point on like the 4th thought. Fuck, God damn it, I gotta focus harder, right? Like this is everyone's reaction is like, all right. I'm just gonna, like, you gather yourself and you're like, I'm gonna focus stronger. And then you get up to 2 and you're lost, right? So what's happening here? So the important thing to note is that something happens, we don't notice it, and then a bunch of thoughts happen and we don't notice it. And then at some point, we become aware that we're not doing what we wanted to. This is a very important thing to understand. Now, what's happening here is we're literally falling asleep. Our conscious mind is turning off, and our subconscious mind is taking over. And now, most people have we talked about habits at the beginning, right?
Yeah.
Most people have the habit of being lost in thought. They've trained their subconscious to just ruminate and think about the to-do list all day long. So when you're going in for the first time and you're trying to meditate, you're doing something weird, and your subconscious is like, dude, why the fuck are we doing this? We don't do this. We don't, like, why are you meditating? That's not the thing we like being lost in thought. And it pulls your consciousness away and it directs your mind to the thoughts. But it's also not a complete asshole. It is on board for you to change. So at some point it kind of checks in. Say thought number 4, it's like, oh, hey, Derek, wake up. Derek, did you actually want to be meditating? I'm just checking in. Now, the second most important part of this whole spiel to understand is that your subconscious communicates entirely in the language of emotion. Okay? So now, tell me, if the moment your subconscious awakens you to check in to see if you wanted to be meditating, you go, fuck, God damn it, I should focus harder. What do you think you're telling it to do?
I don't know.
Well, would that be positive reinforcement or negative?
Negative.
Yeah. So the moment for most people, the moment their subconscious wakes them up to check in, they get angry or frustrated or something, quote, with themselves, but actually their subconscious takes that as, oh, he doesn't want me to wake him up. He doesn't like it when I wake him up because he gets angry. So I'm not going to do that as much. And so actually meditation gets harder and harder the harder people try, because they're giving negative reinforcement and it takes longer. So the time between when you fall asleep and it wakes you up to check in gets longer and longer and longer. And then you're just like, meditation isn't for me. So now just imagine, instead of getting frustrated or even just being neutral and accepting it, imagine you understood this and you went, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh my God. Wow. You woke me up. Thank you. Wow. Yay. Little bit by little bit, you're positive, like training a dog. You're training your subconscious that you want it to wake you up more often. And so the time between when you fall asleep and get lost in thought and then notice that you're lost in thought gets shorter and shorter and shorter, until one day, poof, you're sitting there meditating and you're not even trying, and it's just pure silence, and you're like, holy shit. And then all of a sudden your mind gets lost in thought, but for that like second you're like completely locked in, and nothing, and you're awake, you're aware, and you're totally present without effort for a few moments. And then that space gets bigger and bigger and bigger over time, and I can tell you that's where real magic starts to happen.
That's when you meet the blue Buddha.
That's when you meet the blue Buddha. You don't even have to go that far, but yeah, it is like, that's where shit starts to get weird, is when you start to stay awake throughout the day, even after meditation.
That's really well explained and very, very easy to do. Like next time you're in meditation and the thoughts come, that's your subconscious just reminding you, oh, like you are no longer doing what you are meant to do. Thank you. And then you just get back to doing that thing. And then, yeah,
It's
I think that's
so
just very
simple.
simply said. Very simply said. The final three questions that I ask every guest, they're all pretty profound questions. This first one kicks it off in a pretty big manner. And that is, through all the highs and lows, that is this journey of life, that is this hero's journey. What do you feel in this moment, right here, right now, was the greatest life lesson you've learned on your path that you feel called to share with me and the listener now?
Oh, wow. The greatest life lesson I ever learned was, whether it is money, time, or life force, pay myself first.
Beautiful. Whether it is money, energy, or time, pay yourself first. A relearning that we can all do.
Yeah.
Second question. In 3 words, it doesn't have to be a sentence, it should be 3 separate words. How would you describe the experience you are having in this earth? And you can elaborate on these words if you wish.
Magical, abundant, and flow.
Magical, abundant, and flow. And can you elaborate on some of these you feel called to? What do those
So
mean to you?
like, the magic is just in, I mean, look around you right now. Even just think about the fact that you're in Winnipeg and I'm in Vancouver.
Uh-huh.
and here we are talking to each other as if we're like telepathic beings,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, look at the fucking like just look around yourself with the eyes of a child or the eyes of a person from 2000 years ago for one moment, and like, Jesus Christ, yeah, there's fucking magic everywhere. Magic. The magic is in all the way that you perceive things. And I perceive everything as so magical.
Mhm. Mhm.
Abundant. I can say that I wasn't always in this mindset. But now I am in the belief that like anything that gets taken away is making space for something new, something even greater, something even more wonderful. And anything that's given is a gift from the universe, and that it's not the only thing that's going to come my way, that there are many gifts to come, is that I don't have to latch on to a single thing, and I don't have to be afraid of a single thing disappearing, that I can let go, and I can receive, and I can effortlessly like move in between this energy of giving and receiving. And this is what abundance means to me.
Mhm.
And when paired with that other lesson of pay yourself first, it works very, very well. And flow is almost like being as well, right? It's very similar to that abundance thing that I described, but it's more of like that other lesson I talked about not making things happen, but like doing the magic and then like waiting for the invitation, waiting for the inspiration,
Uh-huh.
allowing the universe to draw you into the place that you need to be, and accepting that you don't know, that this database, which thinks it knows everything, but it only knows all of your past experiences and is trying to predict the future based on those. It's great. It's a great calculator. It's like AI, right? Like AI is
Uh-huh.
really smart. It's a good tool, but it's also, don't rely on it entirely.
Uh-huh.
Flow is recognizing that facility, but also knowing its purpose is going to keep you in the predictable future and the certain past. And that if you want to flow into the unknown, you need to be willing to let go of what you know as your guide.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Beautiful. Thank you for that. The final question. We've played around with time. We've examined your past. We've examined your present, our present. And let's fast forward into the future. Let's fast forward into the future, and we're gonna bring yourself alongside an 85-year-old Cian Kenshin. Who is this 85-year-old man? Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What is the legacy that you've left, and what is the predominant feeling in your being?
Oh, that feels a lot like telling secrets. Well, let's see. I have started a worldwide series of temples dedicated to integration of Western occult science, Eastern spirituality, and philosophy, all wrapped in some sort of aura of Egyptian magic. And these temples have just started really spreading on their own. I'm not necessarily making it all happen, but that there's like they've turned into like this idea of like a temple university, right? You go to learn, you know, standard things like finances, like business, like all of these sort of things that we think are like, muggle kind of training, or that we think are like mainstream, but are actually quite valuable things to know,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
alongside with esoteric ritual magic, meditation, manifestation, quantum theory, you know, that there's no longer a separation between what's considered science and what's considered spirit, and that these two energies are no longer like in polarity with each other, but they're woven together in a beautiful symphony of human conscious evolution.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And the predominant feeling in this 85-year-old being, what is the predominant feeling that you're embodying? I want you to sit in that just a moment. Maybe close your eyes. Just sit in that feeling. Sit in that being, that becoming, that embodiment. And I'm going to bring us back to this moment here. And that 85-year-old, he sends you and us all a message. What does he say?
Don't believe your own bullshit.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Cian. It's been such a joy, an honor to be able to reconnect in this realm, this digital realm, this magical realm where I feel your presence here in my living space, and I think perhaps you feel mine there. And this is a magical world upon which we live, and we can do what we wish here and manifest and create and have fun, enjoy to our greatest ability.
Yeah, man.
Conversation definitely uplifted, inspired, and empowered me. I hope it done the same to you and anyone else listening along. For anyone curious to connect with you, do some coaching with you, they can find you at mindhacker.com and on Instagram at Zen Mindhacker. Any last closing words?
Whatever comes of this, I pray that it comes for the benefit of all beings.
Aho. To close every conversation, we bring our fist in, a choice to step into the winner circle. Boom.
Boom.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear.
Until we connect again, that is a wrap on today's conversation.